How do you know if you are overpaying for a house when you buy in Tucson, Arizona? I had the same fear traveling a lot. Like as soon as I PCS to Tucson, I was out to Southcom and just traveling a ton. So when I went under contract on a house, I was like, how do I know if I'm overpaying? I don't want to pay too much. First off, lucky for you, we are no longer in the COVID era. We no longer need to be placing offers that are $50K above ask, $100K above asking price. Sometimes we were placing offers $100K above the appraisal. The value of the house, we were offering $100,000 more than that. That's crazy. And we're no longer in that market. So consider yourself lucky. Instead, quite the opposite, actually. I'm getting a lot of my clients into properties with some equity in it, meaning we have negotiated lower than what the actual value of the house is. And on top of negotiating a lower amount than the appraised price and the actual value, we're also asking sellers to pay for tens of thousands of dollars toward your buyer closing costs. That's a good thing. When people think about getting a good deal on a house, they usually just think about the purchase price. But that is just the start of the negotiation. I want to be very clear when I say this. It is not just about the purchase price. Today's interest rate is around 6%. I'm not a lender, so I have to also tell the APR rate and all that. So you're listening to just someone on the internet, okay? That's your disclosure there. Plus, I don't know you, I don't know your credit score. If your credit score, then your interest rate is going to be higher than the going interest rate. But I want to run through an example with you. So say you are looking for a four bed, 3-bath house in Sahuarita, Arizona, which is about 30 minutes south of Tucson and about 30 minutes next to base. Sells for between $370,000 and $385,000 at this time. Let's go with the lower amount, a median price of $370,000 for a 4-bed. I've run through the numbers for you, but you can do this on your own as well if you want to open up another tab, mortgagecalculator.com. There are a lot of free ones out there. This is the one that I like the most. I just got used to it. So let's take it from the top. A $370,000 house, assuming you put zero down payment because VA loan and say you don't want to, that means the loan is the full amount of the house, 100% financing. Today's interest rate is 6%. Say you get a 30-year Say you get a 30-year loan with property taxes of about $1,500, insurance of about $1,300 for a VA loan. That means that your monthly mortgage payment, so principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, is going to be $2,452. And that's before you pay any HOA, which you're going to have HOA in Sahuarita. That's before any monthly bills, such as electric, water, sewer, trash, etc. That's before any monthly services such as pool. We're paying extra for the HOA for the Rancho Sahuarita subdivision or pest control, stuff like that, weeds. So this is where a lot of people say, well, I don't want to overpay because that's way over my BAH, which by the way, BAH is always going to lag. And generally speaking, only majors and lieutenant colonels make the amount of BAH for the median price house of a city that they live in. That's what it is in Tucson. So people say, oh, that's too much. I would be overpaying because they feel uncomfortable. It's not about feeling uncomfortable, although if you feel uncomfortable and you can't make it work, then do not buy a house or do not buy a $370,000 house. But this is where I'm showing you where it could be possible. Some people here say, well, let's offer $20,000 off the purchase price since it's a buyer's market anyway. Sometimes we can do that, especially if we're in the $550,000 range and above. We could offer a $20K off right now. Offer, right? That's the starting point. In a $300,000 house, it's a buyer's market, but it's not that much of a buyer's market. But say in this example, they say, okay, fine. So we're under contract now at $350,000. That means with all of the previous numbers remaining the same, that your monthly mortgage goes from $2,450 to $2,331, saving you $119 every month. That's pretty good. But here's where we can make a bigger difference to your monthly mortgage and save you a lot more. If we were to offer the seller's asking price of $370,000, and instead of asking for $20K off the purchase price, we ask for $20K to be allotted toward your closing costs to buy down your interest rate. For this example, we could lower it from 6% down to the 4s. 4 3/4, 4.75% interest rate. How much would that save you in your monthly mortgage? That would mean you save almost $300 every month, almost 3 times as much as knocking off $20K off the purchase price. Instead, if we use that same $20K and add it toward your closing costs for you to buy down your rate, you can save 2.7 times that. That is what I'm talking about. I don't always suggest rate buy downs though. I only suggest them if you plan on keeping the loan not the house, the loan. That is when I say, if you plan on keeping the loan for at least 7 years, hopefully more, hopefully 10 plus, that's where we go past the break-even point of using that 20K that you were given. You don't want to use that 20K to lower down the interest rate and then sell 3 years later when you PCS again. That's a waste of money. You're leaving money on the table. But if you plan on keeping the house, turning it into a rental property, and keeping the loan without refinancing, because we don't know where rates are going to go. If rates are going to go back down to 3, then it's just a money math equation again of, is it worth leaving that money on the table to be able to save at the 3%, which I doubt we're ever going to see 3% again, but say it goes down to 4s, which is a lot more likely, it just becomes another math equation. Reach out to me, reach out to your lender. We are here to help you. But if you plan on selling the house after you are done with your time in Tucson because you don't want to be a landlord, you don't want to rent it out, then I would not suggest using the money to buy down your rate. Back to the original example of a $370,000 house with the almost $2,500 mortgage. Look at your BAH. Does it match that? Likely if you're a lieutenant colonel, yeah. If you're a major with dependents, closer, but you're still paying out of pocket for HOA and all of the bills. Because even if you can save money on your monthly mortgage, you could still be overpaying. So I wanna get back to the original question of how do you know if you're overpaying? It's looking at the recent comps. Zillow right now is going through some heat right now, and they are being sued from left, right, and center. But if you go on Zillow.com, you can see what the nearby houses of the similar floor plan, structure, number of stories, bedroom, and bathroom have sold for in that neighborhood. So if you go to Zillow and instead of looking at for sale, you look at sold. One thing you want to make sure of though, is you are looking at the comps or recent comparables that have sold within the last 6 months, preferably the last 90 days, 3 months. But if there aren't that many, then we can bump it back to the last 6 months within that neighborhood. That's where we can see how much those sellers of that neighborhood are selling their house for. And you won't get the full scoop on Zillow. We get the full scoop as real estate agents, which by the way, I'm a real estate agent. I don't even know if I mentioned that. I was literally in your boots. I was active duty Air Force. I PCS from Monterey at DLI for the language school up there. I was OSI or Office of Special Investigations. I was a federal agent for a decade and I PCS to Tucson just like you. And I deployed and TDY'd a lot. So after a decade of active duty service, I separated at the rank of major and now I'm a real estate agent and I love it. Also now I own 6 properties in Tucson, so I put my money where my mouth is. And I help other military families just like you purchase a property sight unseen from across the country, but usually across the world, Japan, Korea, UK, and I help them do it smarter with significantly less hassle than when I did it before I got licensed. So at any point you're like, yeah, this is the agent for me, book a call. The link is in the description below. Would love to meet with you and all buying parties. You'll have access directly to my calendar. That's what the Calendly link is. So just make sure that you and your spouse or whoever else is buying with you is available and on the Zoom call, and I'll see you there. But we're not done yet. Back to what I was saying, as real estate agents, we have access to the MLS or the multiple listing service, a website about properties just for agents. There we can see 2 things that are super important: agent notes and how much the sellers of that property actually ended up contributing toward the buyer's closing costs. Because you on Zillow, on public facing websites, you may see a property listed at $390 and sold at $390, but you don't see that the seller actually paid $20,000 to the buyers to help buy down their rate. Or the opposite, you may see a house list at $450, but sell at $400, so $50K off. But what you would not see that we do is that the sellers didn't pay a dime toward the buyer's closing costs, and they didn't fix. Which leads me to the second point, which on top of price, we have condition. The condition of the property is so important. That's how you will know if you're overpaying or not. But when you're looking at the comps on your own on Zillow and you see properties that have sold at, say, I don't know, $350 as an example, and you see that they have stained carpets, that they have old appliances, that it didn't even come with a washer dryer, that the paint looks chipped and there are a lot of nails on the walls, it just looks like outdated. Maybe that's why it sold at $350, guys, as opposed to the properties that you may be looking at that's in pristine condition. Brand new appliances, washer, dryer, 3-car garage with the epoxy floors. Maybe they don't have any carpet and everything's hardwood, which by the way, Tucson loves their carpet. Don't know why. It's always the same color as scorpions, but that's the type of stuff that we are looking at as far as the condition to see, are you overpaying? If a crappy or outdated house sold at $350 and you guys are offering $350 on a pristine looking house, and it's the same number of square footage, same number of stories, same number of bed and bath in the same neighborhood, then that is a deal, my friends. Hell yeah. But if it's the opposite, say the houses that you are looking at that have sold already, again, data, facts, those were pristine houses, and the house that you're, say those sold at $450, and the house you're looking at is older, you're gonna need to replace the carpet because you see stains just from the photos, crayon on the wall, stuff like that, and you plan on paying $450, you would be overpaying. Now, of course, the very last person to give us the value is the appraiser. But that doesn't happen until we're under contract, we're already done with all the inspections, and we're only waiting on the appraiser to give us his or her value of the property. The joke amongst real estate agents is you send 10 appraisers out to a property, they're gonna come back with 11 different prices of value. But what protects you is the VA clause. If we offer $500,000 on a house and the appraisal comes in low, say 480, 20K below, the appraisal escape clause allows us to be able to leave and exit out of the contract without you being sued. Because typically at this point, once we're done with the inspection period, we have given up our rights to cancel. Now, can you cancel? Of course you can. But if we're gonna be a couple of days out from closing and you decide to cancel willy-nilly for that, the sellers can sue you. And I don't want you to be in that position, which is why I always tell my clients, are you 1000% sure about the property? Because signing a contract is no willy-nilly thing. It's serious. It's a binding contract. Now, of course, you're likely overseas or at least out of state, so you can't fully tell the condition. That is what we will discover once we're already under contract though. That's when we get all the inspections in and we can see the age of the roof, the condition of the roof, the condition of the HVAC, per the licensed contractors. We'll get termite reports, plumbing reports, as many inspections as you want. In Arizona, you're given 10 days to get as many inspections as you want, and that's flexible too, right? We can add that, we can make it shorter. That's where we will find the true condition of the property. Up until then, we can only do what we see, what we smell, and what we hear. And that's what my team does. My team is boots on ground. So the third way to know if you are overpaying or not is terms. What are terms when it comes to a contract? Well, we've already covered the price. Some terms can be the closing costs of how much we want you, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, to pay us so we can get help buying down our rate from 6 to in the 4s. Terms can be, instead of 10 days, we actually want 12 days to do all of our inspections, which, by the way, I've never really needed. If you want to get all the inspections, aside from a structural engineer, which would take a month, we will be able to get all the inspections done within the allotted 10 days. But a different term could be, hey, we're gonna offer you less money, or we're gonna ask for even more in closing costs, but we'll get all of our inspections done in 4 days or in 6 days. That's more realistic, 6. Another important part of the contract is the day that you wanna close. If the seller is looking to close as fast as possible, then let's ask them for a lot of money and close as fast as possible. Or if you need to wait 4 months because you don't want to buy too early, then we're gonna have to negotiate. If they're looking to close as fast as possible, but you don't want to buy until 4 months from now, then something's gonna have to give. So all of these things so far is what we negotiate in the original offer. So as we place the offer, we say this is the price that we want, the date that we want to close, the title company that we want, how long we want our inspection period to be, and the closing costs that we want to be applied toward rate bind down or not. We put everything in there, as well as how much we want you, the seller, to pay toward my buyer agent, me. So we offer that. We probably go through a counter, maybe 2. The day that we go on our contract, that is day 0 of our 10-day inspection period. Whether it's 10, shorter, more, you get it. At the end of the inspection period, after we've gotten all of the reports back and you have called the inspectors themselves and you've asked them, you do all these properties, you inspect all the time, what worries you about this property? That is when we can negotiate the second time. This negotiation is only for big ticket items. It's not about nicks on the walls. It's not about a little dent in the fridge. Unless it's a new build, then you should be getting a nice fridge. But any scuffs on the carpet, any cosmetic type stuff, we're not asking for. It's a buyer's market, but again, not that much of a buyer's market. What we can ask for is the AC not working? Replace the whole thing. Is there a leak underneath in the house and the plumbing? Fix that before we close. Are there termites? Per the state of Arizona, the sellers have to fix the termites before you can get a VA loan out on the property. So that is where we know we will not be overpaying. And then after we're done with that, after they have agreed to fixing the stuff that we requested, Or they could say no. And then it's up to you to say, do I want to continue going through with this property or move on to the next property? If you decide to proceed with the property, then that is when the lender orders the appraisal. The appraiser goes out there, does her thing, comes back with the amount. And usually right now, we're getting about $5,000 to sometimes $12,000, $13,000 in equity, where boom, just by closing the property, you are now $13,000 richer. And that is the final way to know if you have overpaid or underpaid for a property. So what we don't do when deciding if we are going to be making an offer or not is just offering low just to offer low, just to see what they say. I am not that real estate agent. I very much so value my reputation amongst other real estate agents in getting offers accepted and getting to the closing table. In case you don't know, you may not, you probably don't. There are real estate agents that will not educate their clients enough to what the market actually is. And they don't usually do that much business. So they'll offer these kind of crazy offers and they get laughed at. And then they gain a reputation of being the agent that goes under contract and the client decides to walk because they didn't have that strong conversation. This is a binding contract. Now, clients, of course, can cancel. I'm not saying you cannot cancel. There are reasons for you to cancel. If the house catches on fire, don't go with the property. But the agents that do a lot of business in Tucson, we all know that there are a few of us that mean business. And when we submit an offer, we are serious because we've had that hard conversation with our clients already, and the lender has too. So what I don't want you to do is to get news or opinions or advice from Reddit, from friends that have purchased a property outside of Tucson, because every market is different. Phoenix is probably different. I don't know, because I don't work Phoenix. I specialize in Tucson. Vail and Sahuarita specifically, but I personally have properties all over Tucson, Marina, whatever. But overall, I don't want you to copy your uncle's strategy that worked 5 years ago or that last purchased in DC, because things are different here. As your real estate agent, when you hire me, I have your fiduciary duty, meaning your money is more important than mine. It's your BAH, it's your money. I want to make sure that you are 1000% comfortable before going into a mortgage. And what better person to hire than someone who was a federal negotiator? But overall, there are pros and cons to everything, right? There's never going to be the perfect house in the perfect location at the perfect price with the perfect conditions. My goal as your real estate agent is for you to feel that I have educated you as much as possible and that I've made this a fun transaction along the way. My team and I try to make this as seamless as possible for you. So while you are thinking about furniture, where you're going to place it, and the actual move and the PCS and the household goods, we are working on protecting your terms, protecting your equity, and protecting your sanity. So once you know you are PCSing to Davis-Monthan Air Force Base, book a call with me. There's a link in the description below. That takes you directly to my calendar. You see all of my availability. Book a call when you and your spouse or you and any other buying parties are available. Otherwise, I will have to reschedule. Answer the questions so I can start working behind the scenes on specifically what you're looking for. And I personally will see you on the Zoom call. I look forward to working with you. See you soon.
So when we first started looking at Tucson, started looking at homes, we started actually with like reaching out to other realtors, and I was doing so much research on YouTube, and I came across Allie, and one of the biggest things for me is finding somebody that is either prior military or active duty military. They understand what families go through in a PCS. They can comprehend the difficulties and or the issues that you run into. And so I talked to Laura, and she watched the video and asked me to reach out. And so I reached out and just had the most friendliest response and more excited to deal with a new realtor, because not only are we dealing with one here, we're also dealing with one selling our home in Texas. So it was just two different personalities, and excited to be with somebody that knows what we're going through.